Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Wild Winter Women YouTube channel. This is episode 6. I'm Leah, and this is Faye, and we're here tonight with a daily recording to talk about the Iditarod Trail Invitational, which is taking place right now up in Alaska. It's currently the evening of Thursday, February 27th. Every day has a lot of exciting things that happen. Today's news, there have been a lot of finishers. Racers are really starting to get spread out across hundreds of miles of the trail from Puntilla to past Ophir, and we can take a look at the tracker in a little bit to kind of see like how far everybody is. There, you may remember from a couple days ago, there were two guys who took the long route through the Alaska range. Cameron Ramey and Philip Roadley took a turn to bypass Rainy Pass and take Hell's Gate instead. And then they got to a certain point and turned around. Actually, I was really impressed once they got back to the trail. They just kept going in the direction they needed to go. Didn't head back down the hill to Roan to refuel. So I'm guessing that, they were probably really low on food, water, all of those things. So now a couple days out from that, we've heard from Cameron. There was a video from him at Roan, and he seemed to just kind of be taking it in stride. He had kind of moved on. He wasn't too stressed about it. So that's great that he's got a good attitude and just kind of kept going. The weather is still good. The hummocks or tussocks are still super tough. What do you have to say about that, Faye, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to pull a sled on dirt. It's another thing when there's these huge, grass clumps that in places can be, knee height even, and they're like put together on the trail, and maybe we'll show a couple pictures later. I mean, they're so closely packed, you can't step on the top of them because they're round and unsteady, so you kind of step between them. So it's a whole nother thing to like pull a sled through those. So we're keeping our eye on those foot and ski people to see how they're doing. I mean, so far the few that are in this area seem to be moving. So that's a good sign. But yeah, it is something we're going to be watching the next couple days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had heard that there were some people, or at least one skier who, you kind of can't really ski through grass, so it's best to take your skis off and walk. And there was at least one skier who hadn't brought like comfortable shoes for walking in. And so that person was kind of stuck walking in their ski boots, which does not sound
horrible.
good.
Yeah.
Because it's how many miles do we figure it is? Is it like 20 of like the worst tussocks?
I think 20 are the worst tussocks. But still before that, you've got, at least 30 miles of kind of dirt or at least like ice, so it just sounds terrible. I think it's like, the defining stretch in this race this year, with these 20 miles of terrible tussocks. So yeah, it's this year's challenge.
Yeah. And so how do sleds talk about like sleds? Like, do they, I've heard that like sleds might like break or fall apart.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's gonna be interesting. I'm really curious to see how they do and what sleds hold up. There's kind of these tried and true sleds that are almost like, I mean, they're kind of a bathtub. They're made to float in water and things like that. And if those are gonna break, they're just gonna shatter. But they're extremely hardy. They're used on a lot of winter expeditions, and we have some other like other sleds that are going to be tougher than others. If anyone brought like a cheap sled or a little kid's sled this year, they're probably in for a world of hurt. So we'll
Hmm.
see. And we do know that some of the skiers are wearing backpacks this year. Um, so in that case, like they have to somehow they're going to be strapping their skis on somehow. And I'm sure that they've worked on that. Um, and I just by glancing, I didn't see anybody with like kind of any foot people with like a backpack sled combination this year. I could have missed one here or there, but that would have been like another strategy is to pick up your sled and carry it. In reality, a lot of people's sleds, so they probably weigh around 50 pounds, I would say on average. Like you get into this like 45, 50-pound range when you're doing like these distances of 350 miles, and pulling that on dirt and then hitting these tussocks, like they're gonna be, I imagine, just kind of jamming into them now and then. Yeah, we'll kind of see what that's like, and I'm sure we'll be hearing some stories.
Yeah, I will pull up a picture that was on the Wild Winter Women Instagram page, and it was taken by Maya. Um, so in this photo, this is kind of what we're talking about. She said, "Endless miles of Chewbacca heads. I never swore so much in my life." Um, yeah, and looking at this, like it's kind of hard to really get a sense of where the walkable route is through this. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know how I'd pick my way through this. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, we'll be watching the dots.
fun. Good thing they came here to challenge themselves. Um, okay, great. There and despite the tussocks, otherwise the conditions I feel like have been really good for the racers. And there have still been very few drops. Just a few more that since yesterday, and we'll talk about a few of those. Racers have continued finishing and getting into McGrath. Folks have been flying out of McGrath, headed back to Anchorage. I believe a friend of ours is flying back to Minnesota already tonight. So certainly the fastest bikers, are already, kind of getting back to their daily lives. Maybe I should go and pull up the tracker.
Sure.
Okay, so on the screen um you can see the current locations of everyone. And the race goes from Anchorage all the way up to Nome, in a 1,000-mile distance, or from Anchorage to McGrath, which is right here at this flag, for the 350-mile route, or from Anchorage up to Puntilla, which is this checkpoint here for folks in the 130-mile race. And of course, the color on the flags corresponds to what event people are in and what gender they are. Um, and one handy thing that just to point out is you can get a replay of the race starting from the beginning. If you wanted to see, kind of like where everyone went, when you can kind of see it all, um, see how it all played out. You can change the speed to really slow it down, or if you want to speed it up because you want to go see, something at a different point, you can keep speeding it up. You can pause it. Um, you can look at, only one group of people. If you only want to see, like, for example, the bike women. So there's just so much functionality, to be able to see that.
Um,
Um,
Leah, while you're pointing things out, the showing the tracks is kind of a newer feature, and we've been like kind of having those on every night. And then I heard from some people like, "Oh my gosh, did you know that you could turn on the tracks and see?" And it becomes really useful when you're like, "Oh, everybody's taken this one route out of Roan, and now all of a sudden we have a few people taking a different route out of Roan, and they've needed to turn back and come back. Yeah, so you can see some of those wayward tracks out of Roan there. It's
Yeah.
really it's glare ice like out of Roan. And it's kind of hard. It can be confusing. It's hard to follow. And then once one person goes one way, you might see like a tire track or a boot marker or something, where you're like, oh, that's the route because that's a mark that I see. And then once one person goes that way, sometimes we see a few other people go that way, which has happened kind of in the last 24 hours. We had some bikers head that way and need to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that tracks feature is really handy and something cool and newish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like using the tracks too because it helps, when people are like deviating from the line. The first person who came across here, I thought, why are they not following the trail? Where are they
Yeah.
going? And then when everyone else follows on the exact same route, I assume like, oh, okay, just the way the trail was put in at the beginning of the winter, just followed a slightly different route, and there's no problem at all with, with deviating from the red line. Um, okay. I don't really know even where to go next with this. There's so many.
So I liked how you started at the back, and this is a good time to talk about the 150-mile finishers.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, as you guys have seen, we had a couple people there was a 150 option that the race director has. And so we had a couple bike finishers already this year, and then today we had our first and only male foot race finisher. So we had Mitch Dullock. He's a rookie. This is his first year from Leadville, Colorado. So congrats to Mitch on his finish. Next we had Carol Sepulou and she's from Nome, Alaska. So she finished today. And so she is the first woman on foot to finish the 150-mile race this year. We wrote in the Winter Women's Group and the ITI updates that we do, we wrote a little segment on Carol yesterday. And so if you haven't seen that yet, you should go check that out. So that would have been actually it was the Tuesday edition. The days are just flying by. So Tuesday, February 25th, right up. Carol has this like incredibly amazing story. And she's from Nome, Alaska. So she's getting some experience doing this race. And when she finished today, she posted, "It was so beautiful. I lived my dream of racing on the trail. Looking forward to doing the 350 next year and someday making it all the way home."
Hmm.
Which means going all the way to Nome. So congratulations, Carol. We're big fans of yours, and congrats on your finish. And then we had our fifth finisher today, Carla Gabrielson. She's from Minnesota. So she finished on foot. I know early on in the race, it sounds like around mile 40, she slipped going down to the river and hit her knee on a tree. And it sounds like it's just been really swollen and I imagine extremely painful, but she persevered and got it done. And so congrats to Carla on her 150-mile finish.
Great. Thank you. Let's see here. Moving up in the field, one of the things that we were talking about before is that the three women on foot all seem to be together, or at least left the last checkpoint together. So that's kind of fun. And folks are going over the pass now. It's maybe just getting dark up in this area. So hopefully they're getting some nice sunset up on the pass. I've been up there at dawn and it was absolutely stunning. So hopefully that's, a nice evening for them. One of the other things that we noticed is that Scott Holberg's tracker is not moving. It says that his tracker has been at the same location for 14 hours, but we don't suspect that there's necessarily a reason to be concerned about that. Just given, one of the things we noticed is there don't seem to be people slowing down as they go past his track, and he's been so strong in the race. So we're confident that he is moving on. So we look forward to his dot appearing somewhere else sometime soon. There are a lot of people at Nikolai, and we can see here the first skiers are reaching Nikolai, as well as a number of bikers who are in the 1,000-mile race. I know that when the racers get to Nikolai, they get a couple hamburgers made. And last night's recording, we had Amber on, and she's volunteering at Nikolai. She said that she's made more hamburgers in the last day and a half that she's been there than she ever has in her entire life. So it sounds like they're giving folks one good meal before the last about 60-mile push to all the way into McGrath. Sorry, there's a dog. So one thing that we've seen too is some racers in the 1,000-mile come into McGrath and then continue on. Peter Delamere was the first 1,000-mile racer to arrive in McGrath. It's nice that he has Troy on the trail to keep him company. Peter is out there in the 1,000 for his first time. He rested at McGrath for just over 16 hours before he headed out. And I just read a really cool article about him. He's a professor of space physics at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And so I can put a link to that because it's fun to get to know who people are, beyond just their dot. And for 1,000-mile racers, McGrath, for a lot of people, remember that McGrath is just another checkpoint of many. It's a chance to get your drop box, make any mechanical adjustments to your bike or your gear. Some people like to enjoy the company and excitement of the other racers and then prepare for the next, few or like 700 miles on the trail. From McGrath, there's one town 18 miles out it's called Takatna. And then after that, there's no settlements, there's no towns, there's no people, there's no like permanent habitation until you get up to the Yukon River and Ruby. So typically, in a typical year when the Iditarod dog sled race is happening, there are 2 checkpoints between Takatna and Ruby. But this year with the Iditarod dog sled race not taking this route, it's going to be a lot more quiet on the trail. There are 2 shelter cabins shown in these red diamonds, and they have wood stoves, and they're great places to stop. Stop for the night, stop for lunch. Great shelters, but they're not habitual. There's no people there.
Yeah. I'm glad you showed the cabins because we haven't even discussed cabins at all yet. And then as far as what racers can expect, because as Leah mentioned, so the dogs aren't going on this route to Ruby, they're taking a different route. So the last time that this trail was traveled was the Iron Dog race, which is the snowmobile race. So they in this section they went out and back on it, and I looked back and I think that this section was last traveled Friday, so 6 days ago, and that's just assuming that that's when the racers came through, and kind of assuming that people flew out from, they have a setup at Portman, which is a ghost town in this interior section. And so what to expect when the trail maybe hasn't been used in 6 days? We 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 don't know, but we can speculate based on some speed so far. They started out pretty good. The trail is usually well traveled between between McGrath and Takatna, because there's villagers go back and forth. Um, those were pretty good speeds, and then it slowed down after Takatna. You are on an incline, you climb for quite a few miles on an old like road bed. And so it looked pretty slow going through there, and then they sped up again as they got closer to Ophir. So right now, like speeds aren't terrible. Like Peter's going like maybe 7-8 miles an hour, just like every time I kind of look at him. So it could be like if they haven't had much snow in that area, the trail could be pretty well set up, and they're traveling just following those iron dog stakes. So this will be interesting. This is a super long stretch. Luckily, there's those two cabins in there where they can stop. They're going to get a drop bag somewhere in here. It's usually at the checkpoint of Cripple. We haven't heard word if that's where the drop bags will be this year, but we can kind of make some assumptions they'll be in that area. Yeah, so we'll it's kind of this it's the big unknown, and hopefully the racers can get through there before like a big snowstorm comes in. Yeah, we'll kind of see.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind is if you are playing around with the map and zooming in, you can see this is called the it looks like there's a road here. Willow to Nome Winter Trail, but in any case, when you look at this, you can see that it is, I swear it's a road. Sterling Landing to Cotton Ophir Road. And so there is a road there up to Ophir, in the sense that it's graded and there's a roadbed somewhere in there under the snow, but it's not plowed.
Yeah.
And so, like what that means, it's like a steady grind up, and it kind of like, there's some switchbacks leaving to Katna. But yeah, definitely not plowed. There's, yeah, like Faye was saying, there's typically, some fair amount of snowmobile traffic near the town to pack it down a little bit. But okay, so I talked a little bit about Peter. Troy Skirkowski he was the second 1,000-mile racer to get to McGrath, and he left McGrath this morning before 7 a.m. and he had only been in McGrath for about 5 hours. So he was very much treating it like just another checkpoint and not staying a minute longer than was necessary. So, and then there's also a lot of other racers who are in McGrath, who are resting up, who will leave tomorrow to continue on. Joshua Brown, and I heard Joshua's wanting to get to McGrath in time for man cakes, which apparently he's had good luck getting from Peter. So do you want to talk about, you've had man cakes, right, Faye?
Yeah,
yeah,
they're amazing.
Yeah.
I would describe them. So the race used to end at Peter and Tracy's house in McGrath, and up until 2020 was the last time that it ended there. Peter makes these like the thickest, most filling pancakes you've ever had in your life. I don't know how else to describe them. They're amazing, like, and delicious.
An inch thick and probably like 10 inches in diameter.
And they are well worth Josh's effort to go speedy and get there. So the past couple of years, even though the finish isn't at Peter and Tracy's house, it's at like this McGrath community center type of building. Peter shows up in the morning and he makes man cakes, and then if you're lucky, they'll save some for you if you come in later. Last year I think I got in at like 10 a.m. or 10:30, and I was overjoyed that the volunteers had like set aside a couple of man cakes for me. You slather them in butter and jam and syrup because you're just trying to get those calories right. Um, Amazing, just well worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Yeah. And then the next 1,000-mile racer on bike who got into McGrath is Mike Beyer Grossline. He's from just outside of Anchorage, Alaska. I don't, I haven't spent a ton of time with him. I have met him before. A lot of what I know about him came from a book that Jill Homer wrote, Into the North Wind, and she spends a lot of time biking with Mike and telling stories, about him. So he's a great companion to Jill back in 2016 when they biked the 1,000-mile race to Nome. Next was Casey Fagerquist. And he's, also a race veteran. He went to Nome in 2020, which was the COVID year. He likes to sing out loud when he bikes. I heard a story that one time in 2020, he went along and there were some like newborn puppies at one of the checkpoints, and he saw one and then decided to get one. And so he got a puppy, like as soon as the race was over, he got one of the puppies. So when asked why does he want to do ITI, he said the simplicity, no expectations, no responsibilities, just pedaling, eating, and moving. And then finally, there was a group of 5 that came into McGrath. These are the Italians. So that's Willie Malonia, Tiziano Malonia, Roberto Gazzoli, and then Gazaika, Asa Guinolaza, and Perry Jewett. And they've been riding together for some time. Good friends of mine, great guys to travel with, got a good attitude and nice cooperative, vibe. So Willie and Tiziano are brothers. Roberto is a friend of theirs, also from Italy. And they biked to Nome with Gazaika and Graham Meir in 2022. The 5 of them ended up biking together. And then Perry Jewett from South Dakota. He's raced the 350 twice. Now this is his first time in the 1,000. So those are the racers in the 1,000-mile race. And we'll have time to talk about them a lot more in the coming days and week. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the racers who have finished the 350-mile race since last night. I do have to start with clarification. I was a little bit confused on Mike Monterusso and Timothy Lee. So I was mistaken. I had said that Tim, I had meant Mike, was looking forward to the challenge of the trail and experiencing Alaska in a way that he hadn't before. And that his favorite food was peanut butter and honey on white bread. The cheaper, the better. So anyway, so sorry for that mix up last night. Let's see here. Yesterday evening, after we had recorded, John Noetstein from Wasilla, Alaska finished. This is the second finish in the 350. I met John last year at the Bear Creek cabin. He's a very nice guy who's having issues with keeping air in his rear tire. So at the cabin, he got that fixed so that he could have air and keep riding strong. After that, Jim Vreeland finished last night at 8 p.m. and he's on a single speed. You may recall that, I think it was John Lackey His electronic shifting went out, so he ended up being single speed. But Jim Vreeland actually intentionally was single speed from the start. This is his second finish in the 350, and he also has a finish in the 130. And apparently he carries a little stuffed Elsa in his frame bag and asks her what to do. I want to know more about this little stuffed Elsa. When asked what his favorite foods are, he said he's vegan. And so I can't wait to hear. I would love to know more about what kinds of foods he likes best. And he plays guitar more than he rides his bike. When asked what he can't live without on the trail, he said shoes, pants, and a winter jacket. So I think that's an exceptionally sensible answer. Next finisher, Kara Oni. Sometimes goes by Kara Lackey. So if you've seen Kara Lackey, that is the same woman. She finished at 5 a.m. this morning. She rounded out the women's podium with a finish in third place. She's from Bellingham, Washington, and this is her second finish in the ITI, the first of which was 10 years ago in 2015. So congrats, Kara. Next was Maya Krause of, I believe now Colorado, but originally from Brazil. She finished midday today as the fourth place woman, and for her second finish in the 350. So she has two mantras. The only way out is through it, and trust your struggle. One of her favorite foods is Uncrustables. And her least favorite is fistfuls of snow because you messed up your hydration system really bad. It's 40 below. You don't want to stop to melt water. I would say that is a rough situation. Why did you come to ITI? The vastness of Alaska, the trail camaraderie, the extraordinary feeling of elation you get when you push through so many adversities and still finish because that's the goal you worked your ass off for years. Her advice for people interested in the ITI: take the leap, find a mentor, surround yourself with like-minded people. Start by signing up to shorter events, learn from your mistakes, learn from others' mistakes. I think that's very important. This is truly a marvelous community, and everyone is always willing to help. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Who does she want to thank? Her family, friends, and coworkers. There's an unmeasurable amount of love and support coming from all sides. Ethan Harrison finished early this afternoon. He's from Cataldo, Idaho. He was, this is a second finish in the 350 on bike. Tony Allen finished this early afternoon. He finished with the Italians and Kazaika and Perry. This is a second, no, sorry. I lost where I am in my notes. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, he's a rookie from Anchorage. And Tony, like I said, he finished with those other folks. He's very generous. Every year he opens up his home for the Italians, and serves as their base. His home serves as their base when they're in the state, for a long time before the race starts. And this past, fall, they went down to, I believe, Argentina or Chile to go biking with Willie. So, anyway, great guy. And then this afternoon, Erin McGroney finished. She was the fifth woman. She's a rookie from Anchorage. She did not have a goal time, but she just wanted to come and have fun, and go home with all of her fingers and toes. So I'm hoping that worked out well. Her favorite foods on the trail are Sour Patch Kids, dill pickle cashews, and raspberry Uncrustables, instant mashed potatoes. Least favorite are Reese's peanut butter cups, because she ate too many last winter. Her advice for folks curious about the race is talk with other people who have done it. She's learned so many tips from past participants. Everyone she's talked to has been so happy to share things about their past experiences. It's really fun and encouraging to hear all the stories. And when she gets home, she wants to cuddle with her dogs. So it's about time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just a couple drops to mention. So Jennifer and Jason Hansen they dropped, and I think one of them developed a cough, but it sounds like everything's okay. We know that Jennifer has a little dog that will, I'm sure, comfort her when she gets home. Oh no, I guess the dog's name is Tiny. That's right. So we don't actually know if it's a big or a small dog.
Is it actually Tiny, or is it like a mastiff?
I don't know.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to find out. And then Sean Barnes was a 350 biker, and he flew back today, so he's out of the race as well. And that's it. It's such a short drop list, as we've said. You know, trail is manageable and weather is still good. So people are just making it, and I'm sure it's like a super fun atmosphere in McGrath with everybody finishing, or not everybody finishing up, but over the next few days, people finishing up.
Yeah, one of the things that Faye and I were talking about earlier today is that we've realized there's a lot of like pairs or duos in the race. You know, there's a husband-wife duo, even though they're not racing together. So that's Kara Oni and John Lackey. Also, Jason and Jennifer Hansen were in the 350-mile bike race. They were riding together. Willie and Tiziano with their honorary brother Roberto. There's a father-son duo, the Olsons, are together, and actually I think they're just on that last stretch between McGrath or Nikolai and McGrath now.
They're almost to McGrath, like
Great.
Very close. Yeah.
Great. And then sister brother duo, Janice Tower and Matt Tanenka. Friends, Amanda Harvey and Lynn Hall, and then another couple, Petra and Jan Frank on skis from Czech Republic. So
how fun. Maybe we'll talk about the pros and cons of partnering up one night when we have more time.
Yeah, because so Faye and her husband Jeff raced the 1,000 on foot last year. And then the year before that, when I was doing the 1,000, my husband was with us, or with me, for the 350. And so he flew out of McGrath, and then I continued on by myself. So, yeah. So we both have experience with the, racing with our partners.
All right. I mean, we had so much to talk about today. And so many people finishing or continuing on. That we're probably, so you can find updates on Wild Winter Women on Instagram, the ITI page, the Instagram, the website. I saw earlier today Sunny who was live streaming earlier from Roan. She was like cooking some food and everything. We haven't seen much come out of there lately. It could be that they're out of batteries, or that Sunny is getting some rest, because these volunteering gigs are exhausting, and she's been out there now for almost a week. And Rona is really rustic. There's no water, showers, stuff like that. So I can get a little rough out there. So keep following our updates, and we'll continue with our coverage. Like, share, subscribe, and give us any feedback. What else do you want us to talk about?
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.